Now, Egypt is proposing a new ceasefire between Israel and Hamas in Gaza that would be implemented in 3 stages. It's been widely reported indirect negotiations would be held in Egypt with mediation by Qatar and the US. The first phase would see a humanitarian pause of 7 to 10 days. Hamas would release all civilian captives in exchange for Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. In the second phase, Hamas would free all female soldiers over another 7 days, as well as releasing bodies it still holds of Israelis killed since October the 7th. All the remaining captives would be released during another month-long ceasefire, while Israel would free more Palestinian inmates. Under the proposal, Israel would also withdraw troops from Gaza and stop its aerial bombardment of the Strip. Let's bring in Tamer Qarmout. He's a specialist on conflict resolution and humanitarian aid. He's also an assistant professor of public policy at the Doha Institute of Graduate Studies. Good to have you with us, Tamer. So, first of all, let's start with the Egyptian president, since I was just talking about that. What do we know about this proposal to end the war? Is it getting traction?
So, Sami, obviously it is getting traction because we see...
From who?
So the Hamas leadership, senior leadership, and the Jihad Islami senior leadership are in Cairo. They were invited in Cairo a couple of days ago, and they're still there discussing the initiative or this proposal. And this proposal, it's a multi-phase approach. So the first phase of it involves or focuses on a humanitarian ceasefire, and they're exchanging prisoners and captives from the 2 sides. But there are other components to it. And this comes in phase 2 and 3, which talks about, proposes a technocrat government running Gaza, then preparing for elections, more or less uniting the Palestinian House to prepare for a political process.
For a post-war administration. Yes. Can that technocrat government, that understanding between Palestinian factions be achieved unless the US changes its position, its objection to Palestinian reconciliation, particularly between Fatah and Hamas?
Sami, that's the big question, because we know, when Hamas won the elections, it was not recognized by the US, by Israel, by mainly Western countries as a legit Palestinian party. And then it was sanctioned and isolated. And then there has been several attempts to reconcile Fatah and Hamas, the last of which was in Algeria, and before there was in Cairo, and even Qatar hosted a round of Palestinian internal reconciliation. But they all failed mainly because of the American veto. Because Fatah was always threatened that if it reconciles with Hamas, it will be also sanctions as well. So if the Americans, if this reconciliation, for it to have any chance of success, the Americans have to remove this veto.
So what does that mean? Effectively, this talk about Hamas entering the PLO cannot happen until the withdrawal, as you put it, of the US veto?
Yes, of course. Hamas is a mainstream political party.
So does that mean we're ultimately stuck then in this scenario where if the Palestinians can't reconcile, there's not going to be a post-Palestinian, post-war government, right, that's reconciled?
Yes.
So what? There's just continuation of chaos?
So the picture is very complicated because the Israelis, what they want is they want to topple down Hamas. They don't want to see any governing rule for Hamas in Gaza. But realistically, that's not possible because Hamas is there. It cannot be bypassed. At the same time, for any reconciliation efforts and for any reconstruction and political process to be reinitiated, you need Hamas. You have to engage with Hamas. It's there. It's the elephant in the room. So the Americans have to realize this. They have to recognize this. And for anything to succeed on this front, if their veto is still there, the success...
So the suffering would then continue. And if we, unless that happens, if we take a step back for a second, Tamer, and look then at the situation, the global situation that we have, celebrations in the West on Christmas Day, occupation, siege, bodies piling up, starvation, as others, sit down for their Christmas meal. We've got starvation further east in Gaza. An embodiment of the complete disconnect that's going on in the world right now?
Sadly true, Sami. Humanity has failed Palestinians. Nowadays, especially in this time of the year, You see even in Bethlehem, in all Palestinian cities, instead of the Christmas tree, the festive moods, the displays of baby Jesus in rubbles. The big problem is the theological justification of this word. I mean, the phrases even we've been hearing from Netanyahu, using the sons of lights versus sons of darkness. I mean,
don't forget what Amalek did you, quoting the first book of Samuel, chapter 15 in the Bible.
And this ignores the fact that Muslims, Christians, Jews, they're an authentic indigenous part of this region, and they have coexisted peacefully for a long time. The problem is with Zionism, with colonial settler ideologies, with occupation. That's the problem. So we are at a very dark stage in history when it comes to the behavior of humanity, the international community, towards Palestinians per se, and towards ending any prospect to end occupation.
Thank you very much, Tamer Qarmout, for coming in.